Welcome to the What Are We Doing Here podcast, where we share the inspiring stories of two completely opposite women who overcame their unhealthy relationships with food and negative self talk and found a path to health and healing through self discovery and natural nutritional supplements. I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Brittany, and today we're going to talk about self-awareness.
Yeah, we are. So I want greater self awareness, but can I continue to be unaware of my bad qualities?
Right.
You know? So what I think one of the biggest things I want to talk about with self awareness today is that it's hard. And when we started talking about doing this episode, I was like, oh, this will be easy. And then it's so much to unpack,
Yes.
like way more to unpack than I thought. So,
When I was looking up at it, we thought we'd be quick today, but when I was looking, it was like, it went on forever and ever about what I could do about my own self-awareness. So definitely something that might take a while, but what does self-awareness mean to you?
to me, self awareness is how we look at our actions, our thoughts, our emotions, and how they align with how we want to show up in the world
Mm,
and not judging them. I say this all the time. And so being able to look at those, our qualities, our actions, our thoughts without judgment. So being aware of them and not assigning a positive or a negative to those actions. So that's self awareness. That is the just being aware of what we're doing. That's what it means to me. How about you?
yeah, the same. Just monitoring really right now is more of my emotions, just being self-aware of how I'm feeling and not letting it take control of me. And making my actions align with my values, I would say.
Yeah.
Fairly similar to you.
Yeah. And I think so there is I was gonna look. There's a psychologist, Shelley Duvall and Robert Wickland. Their definition differs a little bit. So the self awareness is from the Oxford Dictionary. It says self awareness is conscious knowledge of one's own character, feelings, motives, and desires. So that's like the dictionary
Yeah.
definition. And then these two psychologists, they proposed a definition that kind of aligns with yours and mine. So self-awareness is the ability to focus on yourself and how your actions, thoughts, or emotions do or don't align with your internal standards.
hmm
If you're highly self-aware, you can objectively evaluate yourself, manage your emotions, align your behaviors with your values, and understand correctly how others perceive you.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it was so much more to unpack than just like, today I was not very nice, or today I showed up exactly how I wanted to in the world.
Right.
So
Or
it
today
was,
I didn't cry when I wanted to.
yeah, exactly. So it's so much more
Mm.
than just being able to look at those things. And something that I thought was super interesting is there's a really fine line between self-awareness and self-consciousness.
Okay.
Okay. So being aware of, let's say you and I had a conversation and it went wonky and one of us got our feelings hurt.
hmm
So being self-aware is being able to ask what happened in that conversation that I can take ownership of.
hmm
That's being self-aware. If you say, why did I act like XYZ? And you start going down a rabbit hole
Mm.
and look at how Brittany perceived me,
hmm
now it could go into you're self-conscious of the way you acted.
Yes. The
Okay.
whole, yeah.
So
So the whole, what I did in 7th grade. We want to stay out of that rabbit hole, right? We want to be aware of what we're doing, but non-judgmental. That makes sense.
Yes. But it's easy to start judging what we do when we're trying to just have some awareness around it. So I think that there's like two broad ways that we can go. We can stick our head in the sand and we can blame somebody else for everything that happens, or we can be aware of what was our responsibility in a situation, or we can go that other side and become self conscious of how other people are perceiving our behaviors and actions. So that's why I really feel like this one is way more when you really start to look at it.
Mhm.
So let's talk about just you and I's perception of how we feel we are with our self-awareness. So why don't you tell me, how do you think that you align and how you can look at yourself and what you do well and what you could improve on?
Well, okay. So for one, I don't think that I can look at myself and not be judgmental very often. That's part of my journey. I'm still working on that. I think my self-awareness is it up until recently it was non-existent. I was that one with my head in the sand kind of person, just kind of getting through life. So, my self-awareness it's very new to me. Um, I think what I am mostly have been focused on when it comes to self-awareness is you have been telling me sit with your emotions. Ashley had told us we're going to act, not react. We're going to stop, we're going to think about things, and then we're going to act on it. So that way we really can take ownership of what we're thinking, what we're saying, what we're doing. So I feel like I have to be self-aware, and start moving towards being more self-aware in order to be, good at what I need to be good at, in order to be a leader in my field. So it's a journey. I think I'm still very judgmental of myself. You know that um, when I did that public speaking a couple months ago, I refused to watch the video after. So I would say within the past 2 months, I've spoke a couple more times and I did watch the video. So I am starting to move more, towards being able to see myself objectively and not be like, oh, look at what you did there. And then beating myself up over it for 3 days. So that's where I am. I just think most important to me right now is when there's an emotion to stop, to figure out what's causing it, be aware of myself and my emotions, and not to react, but to act.
Mhm.
And if I can do that, then I'm taking the correct steps towards self awareness in my mind right now.
Awesome. I love
You?
that.
I mean, I guess that would be, I answered your question, right?
Yeah. For me, it has definitely been in the last probably 3 years that I even started looking at this concept of self awareness because, oh, in the past, probably, 5 or 6 years ago, I would say there was a lot of selfishness,
Mm,
and it was showing up in my relationship, in my marriage.
yeah.
It was showing up a little bit at work. And again, so the 6 years ago was right when I was coming into realizing that I needed to find God, and I needed, so this was kind of like a rock bottom moment. So I've had this real growth over the last 6 years. So there was a lot of selfishness, zero self awareness. It was, it has grown into today. So 3 years ago, I found this new world of self development. And that, because that was when I realized I have this perfect life from the outside. I have
Oof.
attained the perfect body. I have all of these things that from the outside looking in,
Mhm.
people are like, why are you not happy? You have this incredible, perfect life, married, two beautiful kids, a great job. You've just gotten on stage with this, won the trophies, you have the perfect body. So that was when it hit me that I had zero self-awareness. I
Yeah.
could not see that perception. I couldn't see that perspective. And that was when I really started the deep digging and I found personal development. And so it has been a long journey and I am still working on it every day. But I think one of the biggest things is where I started looking is, where in my life do I keep seeing the same things, the same problems, the same
Yeah.
feelings coming up over and over again? And what am I doing? What responsibility do I have to change, to cause that problem to stop? So I could talk specifically about my marriage, right? Like if you
Right.
continue to have the same conversation, the same expectations, the same argument, and you keep showing up the same, I had to look at, I was saying, I need you to do X, Y, Z. I need this to be happy.
Right. Mm,
Well, when I finally took a deep look inside at what was it with me, what internally was it that was coming out and causing the same problem,
mm.
that's where the magic starts to happen, where you can be
Yeah,
aware.
so you're saying a lot of good stuff, man. So, yeah, the whole thing about, you've been on your self-development journey for a while, that resonates, right? So you started to work on self-awareness when you started your personal development journey. Same with me. I think that is it probably coincides with when we start developing ourselves into somebody that we want to be instead of
Mhm,
like just floundering around in life. And also the whole, when you learn to take responsibility and start owning up and becoming an adult really
mhm,
with your
mhm,
emotions and how you're acting with people and interacting with people and reacting to people, whether it's a marriage, a friendship, a work relationship. When you can start showing up like that, it makes a difference. I
yeah,
have seen a complete 180, this in my personal relationships since I
mhm,
started seeking to grow myself. So,
yeah,
yeah, that just really resonated with me.
yeah. I think what we have to do is, because you have to tackle one thing at a time.
Mm, yeah.
So we get, and again, why I say self-awareness is so much to unpack, because you kind of have to look at what is that one thing. So like if I could have looked at what was it with my marriage or with my relationship or not being happy with life, you know, what was the emotion I was avoiding? And so being able to identify that emotion or identify the thought or identify the action that's happening and taking accountability.
Yes.
So self awareness and self accountability, they hold hands, because you could easily say, ah, I am stuck in this situation because he did X, Y, Z.
Yes. And a lot of us do that,
We
especially
do.
I have previously. I know that. I think we
Mhm.
all have.
Yeah. So there's usually some truth behind whatever that person did, but we also have to look at, are we not being self-aware because we just want to be right? We want to be superior to that person.
Mhm.
We think that that person's behavior was not right and we need to correct their behavior.
Which is
So
outside of our control. We know.
It it is. So we've talked about control before, but again, it's usually because we want to do those things
Mhm.
because we don't want to look inside. It's uncomfortable. It sucks. Again, like I started this whole thing, I want greater self-awareness, but can I continue to be unaware of my bad qualities?
Right.
We
Right.
want to be self-aware, but we don't want to look at the ugly stuff
Mm.
because it hurts. Because
Yeah.
it feels bad, because it's not easy. and it unravels this huge ball, a huge ball that just keeps rolling and rolling. We're like, is it ever going to stop? You know?
Right. Yes.
Like, it doesn't feel good to look at the ugly things inside, but I can tell you beyond the shadow of a doubt, once you do unravel that, it's so much easier to get unstuck
Mm,
because you're aware of what's creating the problems.
mhm.
And then it's like magic that you can finally find your happy.
Yeah, you said it earlier too, and I meant to hit on it when we were discussing it earlier, but your happiness, it's, it belongs to you. It doesn't belong to him or to her. It's not up to him or to her to make you happy. That's yours. That's your job. If you're not
Mhm.
happy, chances are it's not your husband's fault. It's not your wife's fault. It's because you aren't looking at what's making you unhappy and fixing it yourself. So yeah,
Mhm.
that's so true. So true. But it also goes back to when I feel like I'm gaining some self-awareness and all, I'm able to look at the areas in which I'm weak, right? Not
Yep.
just with relationships and emotions, but in all aspects in business. And try to then work on them. Of course, it's hard not to be judgmental and be like, wow, you're really weak there. Like, just walk away. Public speaking, that's my weakness. So I can either stick my head in the sand, like you said earlier, or I can deal with it. I can face that monster head on. I can do it over and over and over and over again until it's easier. So I feel like, there are different parts of self awareness.
Yes. There's emotional self-awareness. There's physical self-awareness. There
True.
is intellectual self-awareness. Because I think the other side of that is that we also have to be aware of where we do good.
Mm.
Where are our strengths?
Oh, yes.
So
'Cause
you also,
well,
and
it makes me think about the new girl that I've been working so closely with. She doesn't recognize how great she is. So,
mhm,
yes, 100% with your strengths too. I hadn't thought about it that way, Lindsay. Go ahead.
yeah. I mean, because we have to be able to analyze both sides.
Mm, yeah.
Because again, we're not assigning any sort of negativity or positivity. It's a neutral assessment.
Hmm.
It's just a neutral assessment. That's the only way to look at it objectively and say, I I'm great at talking. You know,
Sure.
you can say I have some areas I could improve with my speaking. I mean, I could too. But if we picked everything apart that we're looking at and trying to be self-aware of our positives, you can't do that.
Right.
Like, you have to
Hmm.
just, well, I'm good, but I could be better. Yes, we all could. That is the purpose of self development, because there's never a time, if you get to the top and you feel like you're the best, then just hang it up, right? Like,
Yeah.
because there's always someone better. There's always another level you could get to. But we have to, so when you're being self-aware, you have to forget about, yes, I could be better.
Mhm.
It's being aware of where you are right now and not thinking about could be better, could be worse. Like, it's neutral and just assessing, where am I right now? How do I show up as a mom? And you just know, no judgment.
Yeah, and I think that's great. So, just because, I'm a little on the devil's advocate side, but when you're self-aware, you've been talking to me a lot lately about, and we don't delve into our past here, guys, but Lindsay kind of knows what's going on with my past, and there's some trauma there. But what about those triggers? I mean, you have to be aware. That's self-awareness, is it not? If you're not aware of what triggers you, then you can't put an end to it and walk away.
Yeah. But you also have to be self aware that if you have a trigger and you are trying to deflect or
Mm,
avoid the emotion, or
mm-hmm.
if you're sitting with it. Because if you continue to deflect and ignore and shove down that emotion with anything, work, food, exercise even. I
Mhm.
mean, that was a big one when I was young. I mean, I had compulsive exercise disorder because I didn't want
Mm.
to deal with anything. I wanted the happy emotions. So I would go and exercise.
Release
So
the
you have
serotonin. Yeah.
Yep. So you do have to deal with them. You don't have to rehash it. But when you have an emotion, the best thing that you can do is get curious about it, not avoid it, but just ask yourself, what is triggering?
It makes me think about that day on the beach. Sorry, that's why I'm laughing, because you were like, "No, you were gonna sit here and deal with this." So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree 100%. But, yeah, so that day on the beach, right? And here's the thing. You're such a big part of my personal development that when these light bulb moments happen, they usually involve you. Now, I do carry it over to the other parts of my life and things like that. But that day on the beach, boy, you were like, "Nope." And I mean, I was about to tackle you. I was like done. I was angry with you. And so I think that's important to note because that's where I am, sitting with that emotion. Lindsay says it all the time. I'm going to sit with it. I'm going to think
Yeah.
about it. I'm going to see what the cause of it is, and then I'm going to deal with it.
Yeah. I'm going to put some context around this. So
Oh, yeah.
Brittany was having some emotions. She wanted to soothe with a substance, and I would not let her. Like we
That
had
sounds
talked
so
about.
bad. A
Okay.
substance.
I mean, I guess we talked about it before. You were giving up your vape, right? And I was like,
Soothe with
nope.
a substance. It was vaping, y'all. It was
Yeah,
vaping.
but that's what we do.
You're right.
So I was like holding it. She literally wanted to tackle me. I was like, sit here and process. Like, what are you dealing with right now that you want to avoid? You don't talk. You don't have to talk to me. Sit with it. And it's so important because once you got through it, it was so like, it was so good for you.
Mhm. Absolutely.
And these are huge steps. And so I'll always go back to having an accountability person, right? Because there are other times you'll call me and you'll be in a spiral, or I'll call you and I'll be in a spiral. And we do not offer a whole lot of advice. It's like, okay, stop, sit with it. What are you feeling? What is triggering this? And you have to work through it. You have to
It's
work through it, and I have to work through it.
it's funny that you say that because I only wrote like 3 things down about self-awareness today, but one of them was that I tend to spiral. And then you just said it. When you spiral down and let your emotion into emotional driven, I think I wrote into emotional driven interpretations of what's going on.
Mhm.
Like, it's so easy to feel like, just for instance, I'm being personally attacked by somebody when they're actually just trying to be helpful. When you're emotionally driven, everything is charged, man, and you tend to react and very quickly. Or I do. I used to have a short fuse and would react very quickly, but now, since that day on the beach, I've been able to process things a little bit easier. Like, why? Why am I feeling this way? Stop. We're not going to react. We're not going to react. We're going to stop and think about it, and then we're going to act accordingly.
But I too, you just said that you ask yourself why. I want you to try really hard to shift to what. What is
Fair.
happening? What is happening right now that's
Hmm.
causing this? Because when we ask ourselves why, that is what can cause the spiral.
Gotcha.
Because why did I do this? Why did I do that? We
And
don't
what is more the trigger?
what is happening right now.
Yep.
It takes the judgment off. It takes the questioning off. It's what is this situation? What is the circumstance? What is my role in this? Instead of why did I? Why do I?
Hmm.
You've got to kind of like, when we do that, it does something to our brains when we're talking about I, and we can shift it to the situation. We can shift it to um the circumstance
Hmm.
and change our thoughts around it.
And that makes a lot of sense because then you're being if I'm saying why, then I'm being judgmental of myself. And the whole point of self-awareness is to look at what's happening and to look at it objectively. You don't want to look at it with a judgmental eye. So yeah, I can see why that would be important. And this is where I am on my journey. This is so new for me.
Mhm. Yep.
Whereas a few years you've been working on it.
Right. And I still mess up. I've got to tell you something that happened just the other night. Like, I don't know if anybody saw on my social media, we were doing this tortilla challenge. And like, it's an oldie but a goodie. And we never have done it, but my daughter wanted to do it with my husband. Right. And so I was like, okay, they did one round and then the kids were going to do it. So I'm like, hold on. I got to run and use the bathroom. I'm coming back. Well, the kids had started before I got back, and I kind of freaked out a little bit. And I was like, "Ma, why did you guys start without me?" And it took a minute because I really had this trigger, because a big trigger for me is missing out on things that the kids are doing.
And we've discussed that. We've just
And
we've
so,
discussed that.
as minuscule as it seemed, that I was missing out on them hitting each other with tortillas. And then I felt really bad about the way that I reacted to them. But because it was an internal struggle, it was an internal emotion that I kind of flipped. And I stopped and I said to them, "Look, guys, I'm not mad at you. This is nothing that you did. So please, you did nothing wrong.
Yeah.
This was me. And I have difficulty when I miss things that you guys are doing. When I can't be, I'm working and I can't be at a practice or something like that. So I apologize that this was something that seemed a little to you guys and you didn't understand why I got upset about it." And so I really had to reflect for a second, like, what triggered me? What was happening right then? I am so sorry. I put my phone on do not
I
disturb,
know you
and
did. It's okay. I
it's
put my
still,
dogs on do not disturb, and you heard that. So.
I know it's ringing through to my computer. I don't know why.
But
So,
yeah, but Lindsay, I mean, that look, you work so much and you feel like you miss so much. And so, of course, you're going to react in a negative manner when you feel like you're missing something else when you're right there at home. So, I mean, it just shows that you're human, that we're all on our journey and that you're still trying to improve too. A lot of times, we share about how new I am, but you've been doing it for a while. It doesn't matter how long you're doing it. You're going to be improving until you're gone. I mean,
yeah,
it's a never ending thing. Just like you said, if you ever stop, you're going to fall.
yeah,
So
yep. Well, and I think one of the big things I want to highlight there that sometimes as parents we don't do well is explain those emotions to our kids. Because
yes,
I could have easily lost my mind, told them to go to bed, and just left it at that. But I'm trying really hard to teach them about self-awareness and show them that it's okay to recognize and admit when you've done something
yes,
that you wish that you could take back. But I apologized and I said, "Look, guys, I'll make a better choice next time," because that's all we can do. I can't judge the fact that I did it. I felt bad, but I was like, sorry. This is why. This is what triggered me. And we're moving on.
yes. But look at all of the things that your children learned from that one experience because you didn't just put them to bed, right? I mean, they learned how to they need to take responsibility for how they act, how to come clean about it, how to work through it and talk through it. How they saw you apologize, they see that's normal. I mean, you're raising good humans, and yes, you slipped up, but look at everything they learned from it, right?
Yeah. That's another one. We'll have to unpack emotional intelligence on another episode.
Wait, where's my list? Y'all know I'm gonna write
Yeah, you can
everything
write
down.
that down, that emotional intelligence. So, well, why don't we recap a little bit and give a couple of tips on how to improve self awareness?
Okay.
Um, so One of the big ones is asking the what questions and trying to keep any judgment out of your circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Sitting with your emotions and not distracting them. So when you feel the emotions, you have a poor interaction, being able to really look at it and say, what can I take ownership of in that situation? And don't judge it. You just say, what can I take ownership of? I was the one that lost my mind. I was triggered. I said some things that I wish I could take back, but I didn't. So I took ownership of them and I was accountable. I was accountable for my actions and apologized. We can really work on just visualizing how we want to show up,
Mm.
you know,
Yep.
because if we visualize what we could have done differently in that situation and emulate it in future interactions.
And that's how it's going to align with your values, because you're showing up and it's aligning with your values because you're being aware of what you did wrong and improving it. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yes.
We can journal on it because sometimes it's hard to look inside. And so writing it down, writing down, what did you do well today? What challenges did you face? Because if you aren't good at being self-aware, how do you know where to start on being self-aware?
Correct.
So, I mean, just a few easy journal prompts would be, what did I do well today? And what challenges did I feel?
Yeah.
How did I respond? And in retrospect, how would I have responded differently?
Exactly.
What strengths did I use that kept me focused on being my best version?
Yeah.
And then intentions for tomorrow. I mean, those are just some, because that intention is, what are your intentions, and visualizing who you want to show up as tomorrow.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. And the journaling, that's Lindsay's thing. I'm doing much better about it. So I agree with all of that. Those are great questions to answer just to start on the self-awareness journey. I might even implement that myself.
Yeah. And then the other thing is just to continue to practice mindfulness. We've talked about mindfulness, just being aware of your surroundings. If there was something that triggered you in that space,
Mm-hmm.
practicing some deep breathing techniques and, being mindful of the interaction and of what you're doing in that moment. Those are my tips.
Tips with Lindsay. I love it.
I'll put the journal prompts in the show notes, just so that people, if you want to use them, then I'll put them there in the show notes so that you can have them available and do your own journaling. Because I think that those are easy prompts. If you want to
Mm-hmm.
start developing some self-awareness, those are ways that you can look at your day and try to be aware of the interactions for the day. Because it is not an easy thing to start tackling.
And I mean, it's hard. It's just like anything else. It's going to be hard in the beginning. Give yourself grace. Stay consistent. Use the prompts that Lindsay gives you, and you'll get there. I know I'll get there.
Yeah. We're all on a journey together.
Yes.
So if you would like to reach out to Brittaney and I, we would love, to hear from you. We would love to hear from you.
Yes.
We would love to have a conversation about how you're doing, if you're using something from the podcast, if there's any way that we can support you. We truly just want to be here to hold you up and, help you in any way that we can. So if you found value in this episode, please give it a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and hit that bell, subscribe so you never miss an episode with us. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.